Hey there, ladies and gents. Games of Kings of War are like buses. You wait for a long time and then two come at once. So, in quick succession, here is another battle report. Today I was playing against a new opponent. He saw a demo game I was running a couple of months ago and was quite interested at the opportunity to get out his old collection of lizard men and dwarves. And so today, he is having his first game. 1300 points, my undead versus his salamanders, and we're playing the invade scenario, where each team needs to get as many units over to his opponent's side of the board as possible by the end of the game. For those unfamiliar with my other video, here are a series of the notations that I use throughout to help keep track of what's going on. I'll let you pause if you want to look. So let's have a bit of a look at these salamanders. Salamanders don't have an official list yet, at least until the publication of Unknown Empires later on. For now they have a beta list, which I will link in the description. My opponent here is using some 90s lizard men from Games Workshop, and I think he's done a really nice job of painting them. They are very, very colourful. Going left to right, we have a regiment of fire elementals. They have crushing strength 2. All of the salamanders have crushing strength, but these guys have crushing strength 2, but they also have shambling and pathfinder. Shambling, of course, making them slow, they can't move at the double, and pathfinder means they ignore terrain. To their right, we have a battle captain on a rhinosaur. He's a mounted hero, and he's pretty effective. 6 attacks, hitting on 3, crushing strength 2, and thunderous charge 2. So he will charge in and he will do a lot of damage. He also gets flanking and rear bonuses because he's not an individual, he's not a monster. He also gets brutal as well, just to add to the carnage. Besides him, we have the Salamander Prime's troop. The nerve isn't amazing, but they have a good defense, a defense of 5+, and of course the crushing strength of all the salamanders. The ancients behind them, they're hitting on a 3+, so they're just a slightly more effective combat unit. Looking further down the board, we have the Clan Lord. The Clan Lord is a fairly typical close combat hero. He inspires, he has 5 attacks, crushing strength 2. Yep, that's pretty much him. The Ghekkotah Hunters. The Ghekkotah have no crushing strength. And in the case of the Hunters, they are the ranged units for the Salamanders. They have a little 12-inch ranged attack. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it will cause a nerve check, which is always useful to have, and they're pretty inexpensive. So those are the Ghekkotah Hunters. On the other side, the Ghekkotah Warriors are the close combat Ghekkotah. They have close combat attacks, and quite a lot of them, but they're only hitting on a 5. Once again, they're also cheap, but I don't think they're a very big close combat threat. They seem more like a cheap screening unit to me. The big thing in the picture, the Ankylodon battle platform. The most important thing you need to know about this is that it has 6 attacks, and they are crushing strength 4. Even things with defense 6 are crying when this gets near them. And besides them, the Kaizenor Lancers. These are the Lizardmen Cavalry. They get thunderous charge, which in addition to their crushing strength means they'll be lowering defense by 2. They have no other special rules, and so they are your pretty typical cavalry unit. And right in the middle of the table we have the Ceremonial Guard. Once again, crushing strength because salamanders, and they also have the Phalanx rule, which negates the thunderous charge bonus of anything that attacks it. Going over to my army now, the Undead. The Wraith's troop, way over on the left flank. They're on the right of this picture, but from where I'm standing behind them, it's the left flank. So Wraiths obviously very fast, they're going to try and go up the board and get behind enemy units and cause a fuss. Skeleton Warriors just to try hold the line, and a Necromancer with the Inspiring Talisman, just to give them some support and help them last a little bit longer. Going along the table we have a Zombie Horde, always just a very useful unit. They don't take up too many points, and they take a fair bit of killing. And they surprisingly got a large number of attacks as well, so they can surprise you with how much damage they can do. The Revenant King behind the zombies, Revenants next to those, over the hedge. I've got my whites on the front line there and the ghouls behind them. Don't worry, the ghouls will go in front. Because they can move the double, they will simply move straight past the whites. I've learned my lesson this game. I'm going to use those ghouls as a screen, since that was so effective in the last game against me as the ogres. Necromancer as well, to try give some buffs with Dark Surge. And on the far right flank we have the Revenant Cavalry in front and the Soul Reaver Cavalry behind. So you can see that this flank has all of the hitting power, the whites with the crushing strength, and the Soul Reavers and Revenant Cavalry with all of that thunderous charge and crushing strength as well. And that's the entire board at deployment. Try and guess, just by looking at this table, how this game is going to go. So, the first turn goes to the Salamanders. And this is how they move. Everything on the left side just moves straight up, but then on the far right flank the Kaizenor Lancers advance, and they turn a little bit. They've angled themselves for whatever reason. And the Ghekkotah warriors just cross the river. Incidentally, in this game we're just treating the river as difficult terrain, meaning that you can't move with the double through it. Undead first turn. Also, you may notice this is a blurry picture, and we will have quite a few of these throughout the game. I need to really take my time when I take these photos. Anyway, so the undead mostly respond in kind, everything moves up. I deliberately move my wraiths and skeletons close, but just far away enough that the battle captain can't charge them. I think he has a charge range of 16 inches or so, and so they're 16.5 inches away. I'm moving those zombies up to the edge of the hedge. That rhymes, edge of the hedge. I'm moving them up to the edge of the hedge, where they can hopefully defend the obstacle and become even stickier than they were before. Everything moves up on the right flank as well. Revenants go forward, whites go forward. The ghouls move the double past the whites, and they are sitting at the front and they are bait. I'm hoping that they can lure a charge from that Ankledon, because that would really be nicer than the Ankledon trying to charge the whites or the revenants. I did think that they might be able to bait out the Lancers as well, but I think they're probably out of line of sight. Necromancer moves forward to support. Revenant Cavalry, I marched them up as well with the Soul Reavers, and I've put them in front. They're in charge range of those Lancers now, and I was really thinking that it was better that the Revenant Cavalry take it than the Soul Reavers. And I wanted to see what he would do, because if he charges into those Revenant Cavalry, I might be able to get a flank with the whites. So I think that's on a pretty good spot with this flank, really. Moving on to Salamanders Turn 2. The Ghekkotah Hunters move up. And a lot of conservative movement on this flank. The Clan Lord and the Ghekkotah Warriors sort of trundle around. And rather than charging in, the Lancers simply pivot a little bit so they're not showing their flank. So he had the opportunity to charge the Revenant Cavalry and the ghouls, but he left it. On the left flank, however, everything else just simply moves up. And because his Ghekkotah warriors are in range, he shoots at the zombies and inflicts 2 damage, even though they've got cover from the hedge. Undead second turn. Now that I've got some targets in range, I move those wraiths. I keep getting wraiths and whites mixed up. Their names are very similar, but they're different units. The wraiths move up into the fire elementals, and in charging they do 3 damage. The skeletons just move to the top of the hill, ready to support them, and to provide a disincentive for that battle captain to flank them. And the Necromancer move up behind them so that hopefully they can provide some inspiring. The zombies finally make it to the edge of the hedge, and the Revenant King's there as well. Once again to inspire, and just so that he can wander around if he needs to get into some fights. The Revenants, I move up to the beginning of the hill, and I'm preparing for them to take a charge from that Ankledon. I move those whites to the left so that they can't take a charge from him either. And the Necromancer moves up behind him. The Ghouls, because they were not touched last turn, have finally gotten in a charge. I've played 7 or 8 games of Kings of War with Undead, and my Ghouls have never ever gotten into combat before. So this was very exciting. They actually did 2 points of damage. I mean, that really doesn't affect anything very much, but I was very excited they actually hit something. Usually they're just a bit of a bait unit or a target for a range attack, and then they die immediately. So it's nice that something you painted lasts. Anyway, the Revenant Cavalry charge into those Lancers. They do 7 damage and they waver them. A very good result. Now they're not going to charge back at me next turn. And the Solar Reaver Cavalry moving up, they're looking at a tasty flank for next turn as well. Salamanders Turn 3. The Fire Elementals retaliate and do 2 damage. Although, in retrospect we made a little bit of a mistake. We gave them Crushing Strength 1, whereas they should have had Crushing Strength 2, which probably would have helped them to do more damage. The Salamander Primes and the Battle Captain both charge into the Skeletons, and do a very healthy 9 damage to them. But the Skeletons do manage to hold, they stick in there. The Ancients and the Ceremonial Guard both just advance as well. If you can see those dice with the numbers on them, they don't represent damage, we're just keeping them there until we need them. The only damage worth looking at is what I've put on the annotations. Along the board again, the Ghekkotah Hunters once again shoot at the zombies but fail to damage them. The Ankylodon charges into the Revenants, and of its 6 attacks, does 4 damage, and the Revenants hold. The Ghekkotah Hunters, you can see in the bottom left corner there, charge into the Ghouls, do 5 damage and rout them. Which I kind of expected. They did more than they were obliged to this game, so I was happy with that performance. Once again we can see the Ghekkotah Warriors, and the Lancers are doing nothing because they're wavered. They're just sitting there and waiting for their inevitable demise. And a Clan Lord swings around the side to try protect against all of this cavalry as well. There's a bit of a shot of the battle lines. And the beginning of the Undead third turn. So the Wraiths, once again into the Fire Elementals. They hit for 3 damage for a total of 6, and they hold. The Skeletons look at the Battle Captain in front of them and the Salamander Primes, and decide that the Salamander Prime is the more appealing target. It doesn't matter though, they do no damage. The zombies, seeing there's a few targets before them, charge over the hedge and do 4 damage to the Ceremonial Guard, healing one off themselves as well because Life Leech. The Revenant King is actually in charge of those Ghekkotah Hunters, so he charges over as well, does a mere 2 damage and routs them. So he's done quite well for himself. And that's the after effect. Over again by the right flank, the Revenants charge back into the Ankylodon, do 1 damage and heal 1 damage off themselves. The Revenant Cavalry charge into the Lancers once again, do 5 damage for a total of 12, and they're routed. The Soul Reaver Cavalry now with nothing to charge, they simply move around the flank and prepare to get ready to go into that Clan Lord. I've moved the Whites up along the side of the Revenants so that they can get ready to flank that Ankylodon and hopefully put it down, with the Necromancer up behind them for support. And that's what happens when you put Lancers in front of Revenant Cavalry. They're gone now. Salamanders Turn 4, this game going at a cracking pace. So, over on the left flank, we have the Fire Elementals once again hitting the, the Wraiths. 3 damage for a total of 4. The Battle Captain, because he is now over a little bit by the side, the Skeletons had to move sideways to get the Salamander Primes, he gets a flank charge. The Salamander Primes as well, they're moving in, they're doing a lot of damage. Between them they do 12 damage to the Skeleton unit for a total of 21, and of course they rout. They are off the table. and this is how they reposition. The Salamander Primes are looking at the flank of the zombies, and the Battle Captain, very worryingly, is now staring right at the rear of those wraiths, and he is going to do nasty things to them if he catches them. The Ankylodon once again charges into the Revenants, does 5 points of damage, and now they've got a total of 8. The Ghekkotah warriors reposition themselves a little, and the Clan Lord moves up a bit as well. I'm pretty happy with how this flank is going. I've got a firm control of it, I think. Undead 4th turn, possibly the blurriest turn by the looks of this picture, but what happens, if you can follow my annotation, is the wraiths, concerned about how they are going to be recharged, have simply flown over the fire elementals and then turned a bit. So this way they're out of harm's way. They're behind the fire elementals who can't see them, and the battle captain cannot charge over his own unit. So they've got safety for now. Wanting to preserve my zombies, because I really think there's a lot of value in holding up this flank, and especially protecting the zombies for now, I have actually decided to put my Necromancer in harm's way. I've put him in front of those Salamander Primes. Incidentally, I seem to have a very bad habit of putting my Mage in the way of units to protect flanks and rears, as you can tell from that last Ogre game. Those zombies charge the Ceremonial Guard, and with the help of the Revenant King do 7 damage to them, for a total of 11, and rout them. They should have gotten 1 health back because of Life Leech, but we forgot to do it. And then over on the right flank, more good news. The Revenants, with the help of the Whites, who get a flank charge, do 11 damage to the Ankylodon and rout it. Undead players, if you've ever used Whites, and they have the Crushing Strength 3, you know that if you get a flank with them, you are having a good day. Well, today was a good day for the Whites. 10 damage. Rout. Good. Revenant Cavalry, they are into the Ghekkotah warriors, 8 damage, for a total of 10, and they waver. It was a pretty lucky roll for him. They don't have a lot of nerve, and yeah, they wave it. Soul Reaver Cavalry, charging into the Clan Lord, 2 damage. And this is what the board looked like at the end of the turn. Salamanders turn 5. Salamander Primes inevitably charge into the Necromancer. The Fire Elementals pivot so they can see those wraiths, ready for a charge later. The Battle Captain has tastier targets and charges into the flank of the zombies. He does 7 damage, and the Ancients charging the front do 5, for a total of 19. They only have about 22 nerve total, but my opponent rolls double ones, and so they have Insane Courage and Last, which I found very surprising and jumped up and down and screamed about in the gaming hall, getting a bit of attention. So that was good fun. The Salamander Primes charging the Necromancer, however, they do 6 damage and they rout him. So I hope that sacrifice was worth it, buying a bit of time for the zombies. On the right flank, the Ghekkotah warriors are doing nothing this turn because they're wavering, and the Clan Lord charges into the Soul Reavers and do 1 damage to them. And we can see that the movement of the Salamander Primes was to pivot in anticipation of those wraiths. Why have I put this photo here? Oh no, here's just a good photo of the board. Enjoy it. Okay, Undead Turn 5. I have moved those wraiths 10 inches forward and then turned them at a right angle. And next turn, we end up making a rules mistake. As we'll see next turn, those fire salamanders, I say to my opponent, oh hey, you can charge the flank of those wraiths. You can totally see them. Bow. No, he cannot see them. You can only see units that are in your front arc. So I've put some blue lines there on the picture, which will represent the front arc for his line of sight, and those wraiths are pretty clearly out of it. So he charges next turn and does a lot of damage to those wraiths, but he shouldn't have been able to. But anyway, it was the first game, doesn't need to be super serious. And if that hadn't been the case, that's a good spot for the wraiths. They've clearly got a line of sight on the rear of those ancients, which could have done a lot of damage. The Revenants, having dealt with the Ankledon last turn with the Whites, move down the hill and get Dark Surged 5 inches across the hedge, ready to face that Battle Captain and try to hold up the middle. The Zombies charge into the Ancients and do 2 damage, healing 1 off themselves. Revenant Cavalry charge into the Ghekkotah Warriors, doing 9 damage for a total of 19, and of course they rout. Soul Reaver Cavalry back into the, the Clan Lord, do 1 damage, heal 1 off themselves. And this is really turning into a bit of a wet noodle fight. These are elite cavalry, these guys are worth like 170 points, and they do 1 damage. Lousy. And a blurry shot of the end of the turn. Salamanders Turn 6, getting into the last turn of the game now. So here we can see the charge that should not have been but was, and the Salamander Prime's charge from the front as well. The flanking impossible charging unit, the Fire Elementals, they do 8 damage, a lot of damage, and the Salamanders do none. But it puts them a total of 12 and they rout. Ah well, what can you do? Moving along, the Battle Captain charges the front of the Revenants, does 5 damage, which brings them to a total of 12, and they rout as well. And then the Ancients do 6 more damage to the Zombies, for a total of 24, and they rout. So the last turn really sucked the Undead, 3 units down. And here we have a shot of the Battle Captain and the Ancients. Just a shame that I didn't focus the camera a bit. And then finally the Clan Lord does 1 damage to the Soul Reaver Cavalry. And there's what the board looked like at the end of Salamander Turn. Now into the final turn for the Undead. The Soul Reaver Cavalry charge the Clan Lord, and the Revenant Cavalry now assist by charging into the flank. Now I made a rules mistake here. I assumed that because the size of the model and the base was so large for the Clan Lord that he did not have the individual rule. But when I looked it up later, he actually did, he's an individual. So those Revenant Cavalry got a flanking bonus here, but they really shouldn't have, they shouldn't have doubled their attacks. But as it was, they got 12 damage against him and the Soul Reaver Cavalry got 1. He was at a total of 15 damage and he routed. The only other thing that happened was the Whites charged into this flank of the Ancients, but they only did 3 damage, it was a really poor roll. Now this is the end of the last turn, and you can see that red line going through the picture there, and that represents the middle point of the board. Any unit completely on your opponent's side of the table, which is either side of that red line, the points cost of that unit is added up, and the player with the most points on the opponent's side of the table wins. Now the top side is my opponent's side and the bottom side is mine. So I've got 3 units. The Revenant King, the Revenant Cavalry, and the Soul Reaver Cavalry, because my opponent has the Ancients and the Battle Captain. So we add up the points of these, and Undead victory. I had 445 points over and he had 255. Really enjoyable game, and really enjoyable opponent as well. Gorgeous army to play against. So that was the first time I've played Invade, and thought it was a pretty fun scenario. The game overall I think was, yeah, pretty good. I enjoyed how we sort of traded flanks there. I really mastered the right flank, whereas he got an upper hand on the left. But in the end, I think having the zombies and the race live long enough was something that helped me to stay in there whilst my right flank sort of came around and swept. Anyway, now for your viewing pleasure, we have a few more photos that I took of the game. Enjoy!